Some of the things you're most attracted to were decided before you understood what attraction was. The type of person you want, the dynamics that you crave, and the things that pull you in, they didn't come out of nowhere. Your brain learned what turns you on before you even realized it. Most people think sexual fetishes is it's something random, but psychologically, they're almost never random. In fact, the things that turn you on the most often come from moments when you are the most emotionally vulnerable. Let me explain. By the time puberty hits, your brain already knows a lot about you. It knows what calmed you down, what made you feel seen, what felt intense or overwhelming. So when sexual arousal came online for you at whatever age, the brain just doesn't ask, what is it that I should be attracted to? It asks what already worked, and then it builds from there. Sexuality doesn't create preferences, it reveals them. So today I want to break down why we develop sexual fetishes in the first place, what they often mean psychologically, and then how to tell whether yours is healthy or coming from something unresolved. So what is a fetish? It's not something freaky. At its core, it's your brain tying arousal to a specific trigger. A fetish is a learned association, not a random desire. Most of these pairings happen early, like during adolescence, and this is when your brain's wiring very quickly. At that age, emotions are already very intense, hormones are high, and the brain is especially sensitive to anything that creates a strong emotional reaction. So, if something emotionally charged happens during this time, your brain can link that feeling with sexual excitement. It might have been a power dynamic, feeling noticed by somebody, feeling protected, or even discomfort. Your brain recognizes that reaction and it repeats it. That's how a preference gets reinforced. And that's why fetishes are surprisingly common and not automatically unhealthy. There isn't one single reason people develop fetishes. Most form because the brain's trying to meet a need or regulate an emotion or make sense of something that's intense. The most common reason is early emotional exposure, not because something went wrong, but because of timing. And during puberty, the brain is especially sensitive to emotional intensity, curiosity, nervousness, embarrassment, fear, excitement, tension, all these emotions. Even moments you barely remember can leave a mark. The brain doesn't remember the event itself, it remembers the feeling you had. And that feeling later becomes sexualized. So whatever spiked your emotions back then gets filed in your brain like a route to arousal, if that makes sense. Something experienced during puberty can lock in. Maybe you felt embarrassed once, like being called on in class before you're ready. Your heart raced, you felt exposed, people were looking at you. That intensity registers. So later, the brain may associate being watched, judged, or exposed with arousal, not because you liked the moment, but because it was emotionally loud. Maybe it was someone older, like a coach or teacher, someone who made you feel small but also seen. Later in life, that intensity can show up as attraction to authority, confidence, or power dynamics. For a lot of people, fetishes aren't really about sex at all. They're about attachment and meeting your emotional needs. If you grew up feeling unseen or controlled, overly responsible, or like you had to be perfect, your brain may later sexualize experiences that provide the opposite feeling. For some people, being intensely desired becomes sexual because it fills an emotional void. For others, like a distance or emotional disconnect becomes sexualized because intimacy once felt overwhelming or unsafe. So the fetish becomes a shortcut to a feeling you didn't get enough of growing up. It's not sex, it's connection. Sometimes the brain doesn't just chase comfort, it chases intensity. And that's where power dynamics comes in. For some people, desire goes even deeper into power, fear, or safety. And not because someone wants trauma. If something scared you or shamed you or made you feel powerless when you were younger, your brain may later sexualize that same dynamic. And not because it felt good back then, but because your nervous system is trying to regain control. Some people with anxiety are aroused by being dominated because it removes responsibility. Others are aroused by being in control because it restores their power. This can look like attraction to dominance, surrender, control, danger, or protection. Sometimes the brain flips the meaning of an emotion, like fear becomes excitement, shame becomes pleasure, and powerlessness becomes control. Your body learned to link intense emotion with arousal because arousal helps to regulate it. So sexual arousal becomes a coping tool for the intense feelings. For some people, the emotional being regulated isn't connection at all. It's fear. If something made you feel scared, ashamed, or powerless when you were younger, your brain may later attach arousal to that same type of dynamic. Not consciously, not intentionally, it's just the nervous system that's adapting. It's not weird, it's adaptation. Another common reason desire forms is restriction. What wasn't allowed often carried the most intensity. When something was shamed, hidden, or forbidden growing up, the brain linked it with adrenaline. Secrecy raises adrenaline. Adrenaline increases arousal. So forbidden can start to feel exciting, even if it didn't start that way. And this is common in highly controlled or strict environments, especially where sexuality was treated as dangerous or shameful. And because the brain is naturally drawn to unpredictability, forbidden experiences hit harder. Again, not because it's what you want, but because it's what your nervous system learned was intense. So if you're listening and thinking, okay, this explains how fetishes form, but what does mine mean? This isn't about labeling yourself or psychoanalyzing every desire. It's about patterns. Certain themes often point to certain emotional needs. Some people are drawn to control. Others are drawn to surrender. Some to comfort, others to danger. Some patterns are about attachment hunger, others about validation, and sometimes desires circle back to something that was never fully resolved. None of that means something is wrong with you. Healthy fetishes don't interfere with your relationships, and they're not something you really rely on just to function sexually. Unhealthy patterns tend to be more compulsive, and they're often tied to unresolved trauma. They can start to block intimacy and create shame spirals. Desire isn't about what you want. It's about what your nervous system learned was intense. Your fetish isn't random, it isn't broken, and it isn't a flaw. It's information. And when you understand where it came from, you get to understand yourself differently. If you like thinking about the psychology behind things like this, you can subscribe to hear more.